Namaste, Jaypal. Why there was Ukraine-Russia war? Just think about it. Can you really find any good reason for a battle between two nations in Ukraine-Russia? I don't think you can find a sufficient reason, solid reason. You won't find. It's simple that geopolitics has no ethics. Absolutely, geopolitics has no morality, no ethics, and everyone is so selfish, self oriented, self centered, and they bother only about themselves. That's what we see in geopolitics. This, all the stories of humanity and humanism and all those things just fall far flung from geopolitics. So, the Russia-Ukraine war is just nothing but a result of this nasty geopolitics where someone's interest is somewhere playing. Some people, maybe one or two or five, their interest gets played. That's what there was a Ukraine-Russian war. For all kinds of reasons one can imagine or not imagine. Why I say this is, whenever some people wanted Bharat to have a war with Pakistan, Pakistan attacks. Such wars took place. Sometime back, when there was a conflict in China-Bharat border, these people, whoever it is, let them remain behind the mask. I should not speculate. These people were so intensely interested in the Galvan lay of kind of conflict between Bharat and China, but they hoped that there's going to be a battle, there's going to be a war, but nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. That's, I should say, thanks to both the nations and their perspectives and their wisdom. Of course, Bharat and China have differences, a lot of differences, but both seem to have realized that an outright war is going to put both the nations in trouble. So, as we know, the philosophy says that in any war, in any battle, there is no winner, there is no loser. I mean, there is no winner. Both parties or whatever parties involved are definitely losers. So in any war, any battle, any war, there are only losers, no winners. So they did not fight. The masked people behind were very hopeful that there is going to be a battle, there is going to be a war, but that did not take place. Strangely, in Bharat's and Chinese border, the soldiers don't use rifles. They beat up one another. They use clubs to beat up one another, but no firing is taking place. And that's a kind of wisdom to both people that demonstrated. There are differences, but if someone gives in somewhere at some point, these differences can simply and easily vanish. That did not take place. Then Pakistan had to be brought into a battle with Bharat. It happened quite a few times. One had almost gone near a serious war, but that also it did not occur as they expected. There were differences with Nepal, small. There were differences with some other places. And the neighbors, you look at the neighbors of Bharat, they continuously get disturbed. They continuously get destabilized. Maldives, Sri Lanka, to some extent Nepal, in spite of the cultural affinity. And Bangladesh didn't have such serious things with Bharat, but Bangladesh, they must have kept as a reserve thing. The battle between Bharat and Pakistan did not occur, then Bangladesh was brought in. And if Bangladesh had to be brought in for this battle, for the sake of geopolitics, then the Bangladesh government should cease to exist. The Bangladesh government used to be an organized, structured, and a well-performing government. So it should cease to exist. But then just think, what really was the reason for the unrest and anarchy in Bangladesh? Have you ever thought of that? Why it had to spring forth suddenly, all of a sudden? And these things like drama comes to you in front of you. Something suddenly happens. And then suddenly something happens, and the elected prime minister just leaves the country and takes asylum elsewhere. And suddenly, a ruler gets materialized. He was prepared since long through a Nobel Prize. He just materializes literally into the scenario of Bangladesh politics, and is placed there at the helm as an advisor. No one knows what advisor he is, no one knows whom he is advising, and no one knows who places him there and what's happening. All the agencies in Bangladesh, right from the Jamaat Islami, gets to be instruments in the hands of these players, masked players. Call them by any names, they all can fall in place. Gets to play in their hands. Now, why Bharat is focused? Why Bharat is focused? Because in Asia, Bharat is emerging as the fastest growing economy. Actually, the economic growth does not really develop into the kind of expectation which we have. It should have been 8 to 10 GDP, but it's only barely 6 to 6.3, 6.4 GDP. If you really want to call ourselves, if you really want to get an economic progress in the effective sense, it should be nearly 10 GDP. That doesn't happen. This, our leaders had been struggling. They would have succeeded. They would have been with the time. They would have attained all the progresses, but they were disturbed by these disturbances around. So that retards the developmental progress of this nation. These masked people behind do not want others to be strong. They don't care about people, but they give lengthy lectures on humanism. They're the custodians of humanism. They're the custodians of all kinds of values. They are the custodians of speeches, in fact, talks. In my childhood, I had a slogan. Long back, I had a slogan which got printed in the newspaper and gave lips full of socialism and heart full of feudalism. That is a slogan raised somewhere in Delhi, I suppose. I was a very small child. I was fascinated by this slogan in English, lips full of socialism and hearts full of feudalism. I don't know who coined it and what was the context. I was too small. Must have been studying in class 1 or 2. That is the situation. The lips full of humanism, heart full of barbarism. That's what these masked guys behind geopolitics does. Because they are not sure of themselves. No one is sure of oneself, actually. In the world, the life is like that. No one is sure of oneself. They are not sure of their own development. They're not sure of their own self. So they continuously have the psychological threat from any developing nations, which must be true, given the geopolitics and the ethics of geopolitics. It must be true. Someone gets stronger, the other person finds it difficult. Actually, there should be no difference between China and Bharat. Both have a lot of common interests. They also have cultural relations for thousands and thousands of years. But one looks at the other with suspicious eyes. I feel that Bharat is more tolerant towards this kind of things. We are not proactive, at the most we react only. China is not that, I think. That's why I, being a Bharatiya, I will naturally must be having this. Naturally, I may be having, and a Chinaman must be having similar thoughts about himself, his society. Maybe that's natural, but let's not make it any point in serious sense. But they both at least have this kind of wisdom not to pick up rifles and kill one another for the sake of those master people. So geopolitics gets to be very nasty, and they want. Now, Bharat is, of course, the fastest developing economy in the whole world. Fastest developing still is with the 6 GDP. It ought to have been 10 GDP, but nonetheless, the fast developing. They don't want that. So they would do anything to retard the progress, or at least arrest the progress, if not to retard. I mean, they try to arrest, but they may be not able to arrest, but definitely they can retard. It reduces the pace through which we get progress. This is what is happening in geopolitics. They want Bharat to now have a battle or war with Bangladesh. And look at the figures and facts in front of you. Bangladesh has a small army, such an ill-equipped army as compared to Bharat. They are openly wanting to battle with Bharat, openly challenging. Of course, if Bangladesh attacks, Bharat has to react, and then they would not come into the picture to play, but they will get things through intermediaries to reach Bangladesh, and then the situation could be nasty for some time. We will emerge. We will emerge more or less harmless, definitely, and they will get smashed up and smothered. That's also going to be true. But our progress gets affected. Our pace through which we progress gets much slowed down if such thing happens. The nation and its leaders will be compelled to take care of the borders and spend more for the battle. We have a largest border. We can have potential trouble with Pakistan. We can have potential trouble with China. We can now have potential trouble with Bangladesh. So 3 front we have to concentrate. We have to spend on that. We have to maintain the border alertness. This would definitely slow our forward pace. That is what is wanted. Even if people don't battle, even if the Bharat and Bangladesh don't go for war, the Bharat has to concentrate on that area. So that will have its own impact in our progress. They don't want this. They simply want a war because that will have serious effects. But even if we don't go for a battle, there will be some impact. Our development pace will be slowed much slowed down. So this is what is happening in this geopolitics. What to do? We have to be with that. We have to fight it on. We have to fight it on because this kind of geopolitics is it's not human. They speak of humanism, but they are not human in that sense. At least in this context, whatever reasons they say for self-preservance, then what's the difference between these people and Hitler? Hitler did the same thing. He wanted to preserve himself. He wanted to project Germany for the West through his own ways. And his own ways, you may agree, you may not agree, but I don't care. But he does that. He was only doing that. Now, how you are different from him? These people who are involved in this kind of geopolitics, they are also not very different from Hitler or any other such great calamity, a great personal calamities to the human world. We will meet again with some other thoughts till then. Namaste. Jai Bharat, Jai Shri Ram.